On today's show, you're going to meet a winemaker. Hello, I'm Shannon Skinner, and this is Extraordinary Women TV. My guest today is Alejandra De Miguel. She is the owner of Vintage One Wines, a winery based here in Toronto. You're going to meet her in a moment. Later in the segment, before we take a break, I'll have my regular Good to Know Minute when I ask my guests for their top success tip. And you'll hear Alejandra's. Well, hello.
Hi, Shannon.
It's so nice having you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
You know, and of course, I was really worried about tripping up your name right off the start, but so I hope I did well there.
It's well pronounced. You can practice it throughout the show.
Perfect. Well, anyway, I'm really glad that you are here today, and we are going to be talking about a wine. Now, you're originally from Argentina.
That's right.
But you're now based here in Toronto. So what brought you and your family from Argentina to the Toronto area?
So we came 22 years ago, and there was a choice of either to come to Canada or Australia, which were the two countries that were looking for winemakers. Both of my parents are winemakers, and so there was a lot of opportunity. And really it was a decision by my parents to want to give us a better future. You know, they were doing pretty well in Argentina, but political unrest and instability, that seems to be an ongoing thing in Argentina, led them to rethink where they wanted us to grow up and give us a better opportunity.
So they started their winery here in Toronto.
That's
then?
right. Yeah, as winemakers.
Yeah.
We've obviously grown up around that as kids and been really close to it, which I think has a lot to do where I found my passion and how I came to find that myself.
And so when you were growing up in Argentina, you spent a lot of time in Mendoza, which is the wine region.
Yes. We're from Mendoza. So
right.
part of the time living in the city, but I do remember the younger years because of where they were working in certain vineyards or certain wineries. We did spend a lot of time, you know, out in the countryside. So
what was it like for you growing up there? Winery.
Well, I came over here when I was 9, and the memories that I have of living out in the country, I remember it being very free and just kind of it felt like no rules. I'm sure we had them, but running around outside a lot, you know, always getting in trouble in terms of we'd had to be forced to come in the house, and there was just open land and vineyards, and, you know, you'd be walking around, maybe find a wild horse in a random field and find something to do with it. So it was very kind of like a bohemian, very free childhood when we were in the countryside. Of course, when we started to go to private school and all that, we moved to the city, which, you know, changes a little bit.
You know, before we were preparing for the show, I was telling you that I'd been to Mendoza with my family in Argentina a few years ago, and I remember this moment doing winery tours and standing at one of the wineries and overlooking the vineyard to the snow-capped Andes, and it was the most spectacular view.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
You know, people see it in photos, but I think when you're there, you feel something really special to see so much land covered by vineyards, and the backdrop is just this beautiful backdrop that looks like a painting of the Andes Mountains, and a lot of times, you know, the covered tops with snow. Meanwhile, it's a beautiful sunny day and bright blue skies. I'm sure you remember in Mendoza, it's pretty much sunny 365 days a year, so which adds to it being such a great place to grow grapes.
Now, so you are the owner of Vintage One Wines, or one of the owners. So well, let's just talk about what makes your Vintage One Wines unique, and a little bit about your company in the start.
Right. Well, the original concept was started with myself and my brother. Of course, as I said before, being exposed to the wine industry, what my parents were already doing, importing some grapes from different places. We wanted to make it more accessible to the urbanites and to bring that experience of the countryside, the traditional winery that's usually out of the city, bring it to the city and make it more accessible. So we had a space where all our wine production took place in the city, just west of Toronto. And it became a place not only where people could come and see how wine is made, obviously order their private label wines that we were doing, but also a way to experience wine through different ways. So we started doing art exhibits, concerts, dance performances. We've done fundraisers. We did our traditional grape stomping every year, where, again, such a traditional visual that we have of the winemaking world is people stomping on grapes. And you'll be surprised how many people have never really done it, got barefoot and touched grapes or felt them in between their toes and the smell of the grapes. So we brought all of that rustic, really traditional experiences to the city for people to have.
I want you to know I have never stomped on grapes.
Oh, you have to do it.
I'm going to. This is going to go onto my agenda for next year.
Yeah. No, it's obviously when you've done it, you realize how much harder it is than you think. To think that every liter of wine was produced that way at some point, you know, it's a lot of work. But the most gratifying thing is seeing people or even kids do it for the first time, and to feel all of that in between your toes and the smells, and you get sticky and the color, and it's really a great experience.
Now, and wine is very popular now. And especially red wine. There was a time when maybe it wasn't quite as popular as it is now. But for some reason it's quite in fashion. Yeah. With every generation of legal drinking
of legal drinking age. Although, you know, in European countries, and of course in Argentina, we have a lot of those traditions. You always have a little touch of wine with water, and kids, you know, try it since they're 5, 6 years old. It's just something that is so part of the everyday. Of course, my family has that, and a lot of people in Argentina, because of the European influence, have that as well. And certainly when we came to, I don't want to say when we came to Canada, I was too young to even pay attention to that, but I'll say over the last 10 years, wine consumption has grown a lot. Wine education has grown a lot. Here I'm speaking specifically of Toronto. And you see people wanting more than just a random wine. They are spending more money. Not saying they're spending tons of money, but they're going to go to a mid-range wine. They ask more questions. They're more curious. There's a lot more interest in the health benefits of incorporating wine into a diet, and what that means overall for a lifestyle, which is what I feel is where I'm drawn more to, is allowing people to experience wine as a lifestyle. What is it? You know, when I had to do this debate once in arguing in favor of wine versus beer. So it was for an event that was done at the winery. And my whole thing was like, you know, if you drink wine with your meal, chances are you're going to sit down because you enjoy it. You're not going to have something on the go. You know, you're going to probably enjoy not maybe more refined or just fresher ingredients, because you will get interest in how the flavors of the wine are brought out when you pair it with certain food. And it's all about a lifestyle, sitting around a table, sharing wine, sharing the traditions of wine, which have a lot to do with family and friends and culture. So
of course, it's very social. I mean, you just touched on that. I mean, there's many countries and cultures around the world, as you said, that wine has been a very big part of their culture for a very long time.
Yeah.
Not maybe so much here.
No, but what's important is that it's growing, and of course, you know, when we talk about, back to your original question of the winery, we saw that there was a need for much more than just the product. What's beyond the glass? How can people experience it? What do they want? What can we give them? And maybe somebody who would never think of going to visit a winery or inquire why wine is made a certain way or about barrels, they ended up at our place because they were going to go see a photography exhibit. And as a result of that, next thing you know, they have a glass of wine in their hands, and they're in a winery setting and becoming more intrigued about it. I think for a long time also there was this stereotype, which is still kind of there, but it's, you know, that you had to have the immaculate palate to try wine or to enjoy it, or that you had to be part of the old boys club, or you had to be a connoisseur to enjoy it, when I am a big advocate against all of those things. For us, wine is an everyday thing. It's on the table. You enjoy it. You talk about it if you want to, but the most important thing is to enjoy that glass, whatever it may be. So.
Now, Alejandra, we're going to take a break, and I know that this means it's my good to know minute, and I know you've got a great success tip, so jump right in there.
My success tip is to do something you're passionate about and to find balance in all aspects of your life, and the rest will follow.
Well, that is good to know. Thank you for that. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, more with Alejandra De Miguel, owner of Vintage One Wines, a Toronto-based winery. So stay where you are. Welcome back to the show. I'm speaking with Alejandra De Miguel. She is the owner of Vintage One Wines, a Toronto-based winery. And I'm enjoying this interview, I have to tell you, because wine is one of my very favorite topics. I love it. And good for you to be able to be in a business making it.
Well, I think it goes partly in hand with what I said in terms of finding something that you're passionate about. You know, with my siblings, we all grew up around it. But certainly I've been the one that's followed more in my parents' footsteps. And so when I discovered that there was something in you, that passion, and you find a way to incorporate it in what you do.
So has it been a challenge as a woman working in this industry? I mean, traditionally, it has been male dominated, and I do know and recognize that that is changing. I mean, you're an example. Mm-hmm. Has that been a challenge for you in any way?
It has been a challenge. I think it also has to do with the fact that my mentor, both of my parents, closer to my dad is the one that I've worked a lot, being a male, a lot of males in the industry. I mean, if you go to wineries, the majority are males. You are beginning to see a lot of female winemakers. I mean, not just now, but even over the last 10 years, which is an amazing thing. When my mother, who was the first female graduate of enology, so winemaking school in Argentina, it was a rare thing. It was three women that graduated within those few years. So
what a terrific accomplishment!
Yes, yeah, we brag about that. It has been challenging. I mean, I think part of that is what makes you stronger, makes you realize that as a woman you have other things to offer. Definitely we are, I think for the most part, I know I'm generalizing, but more detail oriented, and there's great value in that in the world of winemaking, whether it's in the process, in the fermentation process, or in the creative aspect, or being very emotionally attached to the final blend that you're going to create, which is very much an art form. So there are those benefits, but definitely at the beginning, for me, it was shocking to work with a lot of males, and also traveling to certain countries where the industry is still very much dominated by men. Like, you know, in Sicily, when I ended up doing some business with Southern Italian men, they're shocked to see a woman, especially a young woman, come in and try and do a business deal with them. So you just have to up your game and find strength in that. So,
what's your favorite wine?
My favorite wine, I know it's going to sound biased because I'm from Argentina, but it is a Malbec. I love it as you know, in terms of production, it's a very versatile wine that you can do a lot with it. You can make full body wines, you can make light, fruity, young wines, you can make sparkling Malbecs, and to drink, I love a full body glass of Malbec.
Now, your winery, then, it's only custom-made wines. Mm-hmm. That's correct. So how does that work exactly?
So the way that it works is we do private labels or customized blends. All the grapes through our family are imported from different places. So we do work with Ontario grapes, but we also bring from California. We bring from Europe, from Argentina, and from Chile so far. We'll see where else we will bring in the following years. The grapes arrive, and really when you have a number of varietals, say 20, you know, you have Merlot and Cabernet and Malbec and Cabernet Franc and Chardonnay and all these varietals, when you create a blend for someone, a private blend, sky's the limit in terms of how many different blends or what you can make for someone. So it's by order through the winery. And you know, you could take it or be involved in the process as much as you want, or create a private label, or maybe you just want it as your table wine every night, or customize wines for restaurants as well.
So now, in terms of misconceptions, I mean, what is the biggest misconception about wine that you have run across?
I think there is, because of the market and because of the point system that came into play a number of years ago, there is a misconception that a more expensive wine is a better wine, which is not necessarily true. And I think that applies for a lot of things. A lot of times you're paying for the name, or you're paying for the reputation of a certain chateau or a certain winery or somebody's big name who's behind it. So I do encourage people to drink all different kinds of wines and all different price ranges and find what you like.
So it comes down to taste and what is good for you as an individual, what you like.
And I think, you know, when you're doing professional tastings, or you have to be objective, which is hard to do sometimes when with something like wine. It's one thing, you're looking at very specific things, and you're gonna judge a wine depending on those things. But for drinking wine, for enjoying, we're talking about something that is pleasure. You know, you want that wine you want to take a sip, and you want it to just take a next sip and a next one. And if that's a $5 wine for you, or if it's a $100 wine for you, then it should be irrelevant, as long as it's something that you like and that you enjoy.
Now, there's some pictures, one that specifically I wanted to ask you about, and that is you and your father standing at a vineyard, and you're bent over, almost as if you're standing on your head. Now, there's significance to this photo.
Yes.
So tell me, what is the story behind it?
Although it looks like we're just, you know, goofing around, we were in Argentina this past harvest. And the way these particular vines are, which is the canopy style, I thought he was joking at first, but he made me do it. He made me bend down, and he explained to me that it's the way that grape growers, or sometimes winemakers, to get a visual idea of the volume of the grapes that they will harvest before putting them in a box and weighing them, but just the visual idea, you get a much better perspective looking at it upside down. And it's actually true, so you have to try it next time you make it to a vineyard like that.
I'll be sure to try that. Now, so you did mention that, I mean, your facility, you've rented out your facility in the past. You've had art shows, dance and whatnot. So it's been wine as a lifestyle, as an experience for you. Polo comes into play as well. So tell me a little bit about your polo.
So this past summer, we launched La Morada Polo, and in a way it falls under where we're moving towards as a company. We recently moved our production to my family's winery, and are concentrating on all these experiences that can give people a connection to a lifestyle around wine. And polo, we have a connection with it, of course, because it's a main sport in Argentina, but it's also about the lifestyle. It's about being outdoors. It's about wine. It's about tasting wine. It's about beautiful animals racing, you know, down a field, and polo players. So with this idea of wanting to give people more of experiences of wine, we came up with this polo school here in Toronto, which will also do classes and do lifestyle experiences in Argentina during the season, which is November, December. But it was a way to bring that closer to Toronto. And
so you can learn how to play polo then.
You can take classes. You can take classes maybe just one day. You can take classes the entire season. You could take riding lessons. You can also go and have, with your girlfriends or maybe a corporate event, a polo day experience, which involves possibly a lesson. But the best part is always, you know, sitting around and drinking some wine and getting that different experience, and also making something more accessible in Toronto that has this conception that you have to have a lot of money to be a part of it, and wanting to bring a little bit of that to the city.
Now, if there was a young woman out there who wants to be a winemaker and she's watching this interview, what would you have to say to her? Piece of advice. Piece of advice.
I would say, well, of course, follow your dream, regardless of what people say and how unattainable it is. But in terms of actively making it happen, try and get as much experience as you can, which means working for free, doing anything that you can, and surround yourself by people that motivate you in terms of the winemaking world, whether they're winemakers or a certain winery that you really believe in their philosophy, or the grape growers that spend all year. Surround yourself and learn from those people, because the things that they will teach you, you will never learn in a book.
Well, Alejandra, I have really enjoyed this time with you. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but loved hearing about your business and your experience, and of course more about Argentina, and love the accent, you know, so that's great. So wish you all the best in all that you do, and I look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Thank you.
Well, I have been speaking with Alejandra De Miguel. She's the owner of Vintage One Wines, a winery based here in Toronto. For more information about her and her winery, of course, you can visit my website at extraordinarywomentv.com, where you'll see this interview and more about her. Well, if you are interested in transforming your life, I hope these stories inspire you. You've been watching Extraordinary Women TV. I'm Shannon Skinner. See you soon. And of course, you can check out my website to contact me. You can contact me through my website at extraordinarywomentv.com and follow me on Twitter. If you follow me, I'll follow you back.